Some people seem incredibly strong from the outside. They handle responsibilities, support others, stay calm under pressure, and continue functioning no matter what life throws at them. Friends admire them. Family depends on them. People often say things like, "I don't know how you stay so strong." But what most people never see is what happens in private, the exhaustion, the emotional collapse, the moments where they finally stop holding everything together. Psychologically, people who are strong in public and fall apart in private often develop this pattern because they learned early that showing vulnerability did not feel safe. Maybe they grew up in environments where emotions were ignored, criticized, or treated like weakness. Maybe they became the responsible one too early. Over time, they unconsciously learned that survival meant staying composed, so they adapted. They learned how to function no matter how they felt internally, and eventually, emotional control became part of their identity. There is also a strong sense of responsibility involved. These individuals are usually highly aware of how their emotions affect other people. They don't want to create worry, stress, or instability for others. So even when they feel overwhelmed internally, they continue smiling, helping, and acting normal externally, because they believe they have to, not because they truly feel okay. Another important factor is emotional compartmentalization. In public, their mind shifts into performance mode. They focus on tasks, conversations, responsibilities, and other people's needs. This temporarily suppresses their own emotions, allowing them to function. But emotions that are delayed do not disappear. They wait. And once they are finally alone, everything they suppressed during the day starts surfacing at once. That's why many emotionally strong people break down privately at night, in silence, or when no one is around, because that is the only time their nervous system finally stops performing. There is also pressure attached to being perceived as strong. Once people see you as dependable, calm, and emotionally stable, it becomes difficult to suddenly admit you are struggling. You fear disappointing people. You fear changing how they see you. So you keep carrying everything quietly. And over time, that quiet, emotional weight becomes heavier than anyone realizes. As this pattern continues, these individuals slowly become experts at hiding emotional pain while still functioning normally. They go to work, answer messages, help friends, take care of responsibilities, and continue showing up for everyone else even when they feel emotionally exhausted inside. And because they keep functioning, people assume they are okay. That is one of the loneliest parts of this experience. The stronger you appear externally, the less people realize how much you are struggling internally. There is also a deep connection between emotional control and self-worth. Many people who fall apart in private unconsciously believe that their value comes from being dependable, stable, or useful to others. So, showing emotional vulnerability feels dangerous because it threatens the role they built their identity around. They think, if I stop being strong, people will lose trust in me. If I fall apart, everything around me will become unstable. So they keep suppressing emotions during the day and only allowing themselves to feel them when no one is watching. Another important factor is emotional overload. These individuals often absorb stress for long periods without properly processing it. They stay focused on survival, ignoring what is happening inside themselves, but emotions don't disappear just because they are ignored. They build quietly. And eventually, the nervous system reaches a limit. That is why emotional breakdowns often happen suddenly and privately. A small moment, a song, a memory, a simple question, can trigger emotions that have been suppressed for weeks or months. What looks like an overreaction from the outside is usually accumulated emotional pressure finally releasing. There is also fear of vulnerability. Many of these individuals genuinely want support, but struggle to trust that others can handle seeing them emotionally unfiltered. They are used to being the stable one, not the one needing comfort. So instead of opening up, they isolate emotionally. They cry alone, overthink alone, recover alone, and then return to the world, acting composed again. This creates a painful cycle where people admire their strength without realizing how much suffering is hidden underneath it. Because what looks like strength externally is often emotional survival internally. Over time, constantly being strong in public begins affecting these individuals in deeper psychological ways. The emotional separation between their public self and private self grows larger and larger until they almost feel like two different people. One version exists for the world. The other exists in silence. In public, they are calm, capable, and emotionally controlled. They know how to respond, help, and keep situations stable. But privately, the emotions they suppressed throughout the day begin surfacing all at once: stress, sadness, exhaustion, anger, loneliness. And because these emotions were held in for so long, they often feel intense when they finally appear. One major effect of this pattern is emotional fatigue. Constantly monitoring emotions, controlling reactions, and maintaining composure requires enormous mental energy. Even if they look fine externally, internally they often feel drained, not physically, emotionally. There is also a strong tendency toward isolation. Since they are used to handling emotions privately, asking for support starts feeling unnatural. Over time, they stop expecting people to truly understand what they are carrying. So instead of opening up, they become quieter, more distant, more emotionally unavailable. Not because they don't care about people, but because vulnerability feels unfamiliar after years of emotional self-protection. Another important layer is fear of losing control. Many people who fall apart privately are terrified of breaking down publicly. They fear crying unexpectedly, becoming emotionally overwhelmed, or appearing weak in front of others. So they stay hyper-controlled, always managing themselves, always holding things together. But this constant control creates pressure inside the nervous system. And eventually, the mind looks for somewhere safe to release it, usually when they are finally alone. There is also hidden loneliness in this experience. Because when everyone only sees your strong side, very few people truly know how much pain you carry internally. Others may admire you, depend on you, or describe you as emotionally stable without realizing how overwhelmed you actually feel. And that creates emotional distance. You feel surrounded by people, yet emotionally unseen. Eventually, many of these individuals begin realizing something important. Strength is not supposed to mean suppressing everything alone, because constantly surviving emotionally without support eventually turns strength into exhaustion. Eventually, people who are strong in public and fall apart in private reach a moment where they can no longer ignore the emotional imbalance they've been carrying for years. They begin realizing that constantly holding everything together has slowly disconnected them from their own emotional needs, and that realization is painful. Because for so long, they believed strength meant endurance, silence, control, handling everything alone. But over time, they start understanding that real emotional strength is not about never breaking down. It is about allowing yourself to be human without feeling guilty for it. One of the biggest shifts happens when they stop viewing vulnerability as failure. For years, many of these individuals treated emotions like something to manage privately so they would not affect anyone else. They became experts at appearing okay while quietly suffering inside. But eventually, the emotional weight becomes too heavy to carry alone forever, and the mind begins craving something deeper than survival: connection, support, safety. Another important realization is that people cannot truly know you if they only see the version of you that performs strength all the time. Emotional closeness requires honesty. It requires letting trusted people see parts of you that are tired, overwhelmed, or hurting. And while that feels uncomfortable at first, it also creates relief, because pretending all the time is exhausting. There is also healing in understanding that asking for support does not erase your strength. In fact, constantly suppressing emotions often weakens emotional health over time. But allowing yourself to speak honestly, rest emotionally, and lean on others when needed creates balance. And balance is healthier than constant emotional control. These individuals also begin learning that they are allowed to exist beyond the role of the strong one. Their value is not based only on how much they can handle, how calm they appear, or how well they support everyone else. They deserve care, too. They deserve understanding, too. They deserve space to fall apart sometimes, too. And perhaps the most powerful transformation happens when they finally experience being emotionally accepted without needing to appear perfect or composed. For once, they are not admired for how strong they look. They are understood for how human they actually are. In the end, the psychology of people who are strong in public and fall apart in private is deeply connected to emotional survival, responsibility, self-protection, and fear of vulnerability. But healing begins when they realize this. You do not have to carry everything alone just to prove you are strong. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is let someone see that you are hurting too.